What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, today, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom reviews go live, and yesterday, Nintendo decided to reveal a very key aspect of the game that actually gets me more excited for it, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about PlayStation Plus with the extra and premium tier, as Sony just showed up with a ton of games going into the service next week. And we're also going to be revisiting the Activision Blizzard Microsoft deal, as it appears things might actually flip in Microsoft's favor here soon. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with EA and some of their upcoming releases that people are excited for. EA did share their overall financial results from this past fiscal year, and then gave sort of their forecast and what we can expect over the next 12 months or so, running up until the end of March 2024. And we can see some of the games that they have here, and this is sort of in their summary for their financials, shows fiscal year 24 slate. This, again, running up until the end of March 2024. And you can see some of the basics in there. Madden, of course, their EA Sports FC, which is the FIFA replacement. You see NHL, but something that people noticed is there's nothing when it comes to Dragon Age or Mass Effect. And yeah, that means that we're not going to see those games released in the next year or so, and I'm kind of expecting that at this point. We're coming up on June, right? And that's usually around the time that we would have at least had a big push for release of these games, and we haven't even seen them, like gameplay or anything like that. So I am thinking we could see these games in a bit more detail before the end of this fiscal year, and maybe it just releases next holiday. We'll see. Again, there's still a lot of questions around Mass Effect and Dragon Age, but for now, doesn't look like they're going to be releasing between now and the end of March 2024. Also, it looks like A Plague Tale Requiem got a big-time patch for consoles of the Xbox and the PlayStation 5. You can see this posted up over on their Twitter account, saying A Plague Tale Requiem's performance mode is live. That's with a 60 FPS mode for PS5 and Xbox Series X, as well as additional graphic options for PC. And this was a big drawback for A Plague Tale. It at least looked really good, but it was unfortunately locked at 30 frames per second. And I think there was like a 40 frames or 40 hertz mode that would also leverage VRR on the Xbox and would give you a better experience when it comes to movement and the fluidity of the entire thing. But it coming in now at 60 FPS with that performance patch is very welcome. The resolution, the visuals do take a hit. People have already put up some comparison shots, but going from 30 to 60, it's worth the drawback of a lowered resolution. So I'll go back and check this one out when I can. There's just so much stuff coming out right now, but eventually, maybe towards the end of the summer, I'll revisit this one to see how it looks now. Oh, and as expected, since there is a PlayStation Showcase rumored to be happening in the next couple of weeks, we need our typical Bloodborne rumor, and this is posted up over on Twitter. This tweet went, viral, just exploded. 1.5 million views on it. This was from Rhino saying, Bloodborne is coming to PC and PS5 and is set to be revealed at the next PlayStation Showcase. This is coming from David Jaffe, by the way, from his stream, and he posted up a video kind of responding to all the hype around this, with him being the source, just saying, hey, I heard it from a friend of mine, a reporter, and it seems like it is a thing that's happening, but he didn't say it was happening at this showcase. So it's just, again, the hype and really hope at this point that Sony will do something with Bloodborne, because it currently remaining on the PlayStation 4 at 30 FPS is outright criminal. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It's actually going to be coming out technically later on tonight. If you buy it out of the Australian eShop, I think like 5 or 6 p.m. Eastern time, it just goes live. So you'll start to see some streams pop up later on today, and reviews, of course, going live this morning, which that was part of the poll question that I posted yesterday, had to do with how the Metacritic score will be compared to Breath of the Wild. So stay tuned for those results. But yesterday, Nintendo showed up on Twitter and just divulged, I think, a very important aspect to Tears of the Kingdom that should heavily differentiate it from Breath of the Wild. We can see this posted up over on Twitter from Nintendo of America. Says, the dungeons are huge and each carry their own regional look and feel. This also exploding online, went viral, over 1.7 million views on it. And they say, take a deep dive into the Kingdom of Hyrule. In the 3rd chapter of our Legend of Zelda Tears Kingdom Ask the Developer interview, you can see a bunch of the different developers there alongside of Eiji Aonuma. Now, looking at IGN, who did transcribe some of the quotes that were made here, like from the art director, Satoru Takizawa, who says, "We've made dungeons unique to their respective environments, so we think you'll be able to enjoy the wide variety of regional characteristics." Going on to say, making a wide variety was pretty challenging. The 4 divine beasts were the dungeons in the last game, and they share similar designs. This time, the dungeons are huge, and each carry their own regional look and feel, just like the traditional Legend of Zelda games. We think they will provide a satisfying challenge for players. They were certainly a challenge to develop. To go a little further here, the game director did say there is a dungeon that connects directly from Hyrule's surface. If you dive from the sky straight into the dungeon, you'll trigger an event. We think this will be a new experience that wasn't possible in the previous game. So this has been a big talking point for a little while now. Will there be traditional dungeons in the game? Will they just rely heavily on something like the Divine Beast, which I do believe was probably the weakest aspect of Breath of the Wild. They just felt so samey, and while they tried to change up some of the mechanics, it was still pretty similar. Really, it was just moving a part of the Divine Beast or rotating it, and then you just get to these different terminals. Once you get enough of them, the final boss unlocks, you beat that, and that's it, you're good to go. I like the idea of them theming them a bit more, so rather than they all look like these stone sculpture animals and inside it's just a lot of stone, maybe you go somewhere that's more forest themed and it's overgrown and you're basically going through the woods. Another, of course, being more water-based, fire, ice, lightning. There, again, a lot of things that can be done here with these more traditional dungeons. And really, this just gets me more excited for the game. I already figure the world itself is going to feel more alive and be more dense. Some of this having to do with leaks and stuff that have been thrown around out there, but I just feel like they did indeed take the formula or the foundation that they've laid here with Breath of the Wild and just taken it to a whole nother level. So I'm very excited to get lost in this world, and I am going to pick it up on the Australian eShop and probably start doing a bit of a playthrough later on today and just kind of give you guys the first look as I go through it for the first time and see what we have, at least with the starting point for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So really exciting stuff. Very happy to hear that we have traditional dungeons to look forward to in the game. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tier for the month of May. And really, Sony's been doing a pretty good job, I think, with extra tier specifically. Premium is still kind of hit and miss because it depends on where they decide to pull some of these legacy titles from, and they seem to be very allergic to the PS2 generation so far, but their extra tier has had some pretty good titles going in, and it appears this month is no different. In fact, this might be their best month so far with the extra tier. Let's take a look, though, over on PlayStation Blog. Now, these games will be live May 16th, so next week. And right off the bat, you can see the big headliner is indeed Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. We had just talked about this a week or two ago on the Spawncast. A question was, why isn't Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart in there? And I was a little confused myself, but hey, there it is. Sony must have been paying attention to the podcast. Then we have Humanity, that's on the PS4 and the PS5. Watch Dogs Legion on the PS4 and the PS5. Dishonored 2 on the PS4, awesome title. And then Dishonored Death of the Outsider on the PS4 to go alongside of that. We have Sakuna of Rice and Ruin. That's a pretty cool game, and I remember I picked it up on the Switch, and they had like the big box kind of bundle, the collector's edition, but pretty awesome title there to just kind of go into the extra service. You have Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, Rise of the Tomb Raider, the 20-year celebration, and then Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So immediately you have all of the newer Tomb Raider games going in as well. Bus Simulator 21, Next Stop, Evil Within 2, Wolfenstein Youngblood, Thymesia, Rain World, Lake, Conan Exiles, Rune Factory 4 Special Edition, Soundfall. Again, there's a lot of titles that are going into the service on May 16th. Little bit of something for everyone, really. And then we move up to the premium tier, and they do have Siphon Filter Logan's Shadow, PS4 and PS5. And this is a good entry. It is from the PSP, and if you look it up, it is highly rated. I remember playing this on the PSP back in the day, and it did feel like they had a console game on the portable system. And the only drawback, and it's really the PSP that was at fault here at the time, it had one analog stick. So aiming, moving, a little weird, and I'm actually kind of excited to check this out on the PlayStation 5 because we have the dual analog sticks, and I know people have done that now through emulation, all this, but just to see how this game kind of translates over to the being smoothed out with the higher resolution and the controls, that's going to be a fun one to revisit. Then we have Blade Dancer, Lineage of the Light. I have not played this one. Let me know if it was any good. Pursuit Force, that's a PS4 and PS5. A lot of PSP stuff hitting this month. And then, oddly enough, they have Ghostbusters, the video game remaster. This is another situation where they're kind of pulling like stuff from the older generation, because Ghostbusters, this was a game that released on the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, the PS2. So I guess Sony's playing into the idea of, hey, this is a game from back in the days, the legacy consoles. Yes, there's a remastered version of it for the PS4, but this is a game from back in the day. To me, they're just trying to pass it off as that and kind of let it blend into the premium tier alongside of PS2 and PSP and PS1 games, but it just still seems a little off. That's not to say that Ghostbusters isn't a good game. It is. I recommend checking that one out, but for the most part, this is a pretty good month for Sony overall. Just a lot of titles going in there, and if you're on extra tier, this seems like a phenomenal deal overall. In fact, at this point, I would even recommend an upgrade from the Essential to the extra tier, which I believe is a $40 difference. But I just hope Sony can actually look into that PS2 generation a bit more and maybe try taking some games there and adding into the premium. Next up, let's talk about a highly anticipated game that people go crazy over whenever there's any kind of news or trailer, really anything, and that's Hollow Knight Silksong. Well, we got news that I don't think people were hoping for, but I think this is good for the game in the long run, especially after a lot of titles that I've seen recently come out. We can see this posted up. This over on Twitter from Matthew Griffin, who's the marketing and publishing for Hollow Knight Silksong over at Team Cherry, saying, hey gang, just a quick update about Silksong. We had planned to release in the first half of 2023, but development is still continuing. We're excited by how the game is shaping up, and it's gotten quite big, so we want to take the time to make the game as good as we can. Expect more details from us once we get closer to release. So there we have it. It's May, so unless they were going to shadow drop it, maybe at a Direct or Xbox Showcase, yeah, it's probably not coming out in the first half of 2023. We do know it's going to Game Pass, so that's good. I guess they already got the Game Pass bag up front for it, so maybe that's allowing them to take more time to develop the title. The fact, though, they say that the game has gotten quite big, it does make me excited for what they're going to show up with here. And to be honest, from what I've seen recently with some of these more current titles, and I know Silksong isn't pushing the boundaries for a big 3D AAA style game, but it's still a title that could come out and have bugs and other issues if they rush it. I'd rather them just take as much time as they want for a game that people are really looking forward to, rather than have a good game that is just marred with bugs and glitches and frustrating issues. Just come out with a game that is high quality that you're happy with. Because I beat Jedi Survivor. That is a really good game, but it's so messed up at launch that I can't really recommend it with confidence. So I'd rather Silksong take its time and come out as high quality as possible, and we just get an awesome experience from it. And I think most people are willing to wait for it. So maybe we see or hear more about it as we get into the second half of 2023 when they're ready to talk about a release date. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an update for the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. Last we talked about this, the CMA had decided to block the deal, which brings up a lot of stuff on the legal side that most of us probably are not qualified to come to any substantial conclusion around. However, something we were looking towards would be the EU and what their decision around the deal would be, which could lead to maybe pressure on the FTC or the CMA on the flip side to maybe reverse course. Well, we can see this posted up on Reuters, where they say EU decision clearing a $69 billion Microsoft Activision deal expected May 15th. So in this case, Reuters is at least looking around saying, hey, we have sources that mention that the EU will move to approve the deal. Could be concessions in there or something. So it's possible Microsoft has to do a few things to make it go through there. However, I'm getting some deja vu because I remember leading up to the CMA decision, there was a lot of talk and a lot of sources, we'll say, that had seemed to lean towards them approving the deal, and then out of nowhere, they actually blocked it. And in fact, from what I've heard, that even caught Microsoft off guard. They thought it was going through too. And if we take a look a bit further into this, as pointed out by Jez Corden over on Windows Central, it says the report looks a bit dubious. Reuters says that its sources discussed the matter all the way back in March, before the CMA's decision. And it's very possible that the EU sees the CMA's decision and decides, we're going to more or less side with the CMA and kind of keep things status quo, as maybe they're also looking to the FTC to kind of side with the CMA there. So it's possible that CMA decision could have swayed them away from approval to blocking. And I will tell you this, if the EU blocks, most likely the FTC will. And then it's probably in Microsoft's best interest to move on from the deal, even though that involves them paying Activision Blizzard $3 billion. So we'll see what happens to the EU, but in this case, they're saying by next week, we'll find out one way or the other, so we'll see then. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Zelda Tears of the Kingdom score higher than Breath of the Wild on Metacritic? 24% say yes, it'll get a 98 minimum. Wow, shooting high there. I mean, it's either a 98 or a 99, and then you're going to match Ocarina of Time for the highest rated game of all time there. Then we have 34% saying it'll match Breath of the Wild at a 97, and then 42% say no, it'll score a 96 or under. So the odds would play in the favor of 96 or under, obviously, because it could come in at a 93 and you're still correct, whereas a 97 or so, I mean, that's hitting right where Breath of the Wild was. But I do think Tears of the Kingdom, just based on all the information that keeps getting out there, is just better than Breath of the Wild by a wide margin. So because of that, and the fact that expectations continue to go up, I think it will match Breath of the Wild at a 97. However, I mean, it really only takes a 6 or a 7 to kind of throw all that out of the window. So we'll see how reviewers feel about this game. Again, those reviews should be live this morning, so we'll find out here soon. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Painter saying 6 or 7 years for hardware is quite a lot. Shout out to Nintendo for surviving for so long. I think they will get 10 years out of the Switch, by the way. I mean, think about how they're most likely going to get through to potentially the end of this fiscal year with the Switch still being the only console that they offer at that point. Obviously the variants, but the main Switch platform. And then they still have to introduce the new one. If they go all the way to holiday 2024, we saw the 3DS have a couple of years after the Switch came out. It's possible that the current Switch does really go until 2027. And wouldn't that be a fascinating thing to watch unfold over the 10 years, right, of this system that people were unsure what Nintendo's future would be after the Wii U really struggled, and oh wait, they turn in a system that potentially could still vie for the best console sales ever, topping the PS2, but still has to last a bit longer for that, and if it gets to 10 years, I think it'll get there. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whereas Nintendo revealing that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has dungeons that are similar to traditional dungeons from previous Zelda games. Then also, what about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tier with all those titles going in next week? And then, do you think Microsoft will get the approval from the EU, or are we going to have a bit of a twist next week when they go to block? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.